Pleasure to be here. I'm going to give you a tour of my gallery, Frank Ordaz. You guys probably know that by now. And so I'm here at 843 Lincoln Way, beautiful downtown Auburn. We just got some new awnings here. So I'm going to go outside so you can get an idea what my place looks like. So I'm going to reverse this here. Hold on. There we go. Okay. I'm going to go outside. So if you've never been to the gallery, and I'm going to be here for studio tour. So it's kind of what it looks like. I can go sideways. Yeah, here we go. So I'm right here in downtown. And right now it's not smoky, which is great. Here's one of my newer paintings. Okay. In case you probably read my bio, I worked on Star Wars. So I do a bunch of these kind of quirky little cowboys with Star Wars motifs. And my house is a little bit like a clubhouse. I have a lot of people just kind of stop in and visit. And so I've been a professional artist, made my living as an artist since I was 21. So I kind of got tired of working by myself after my experience with Lucasfilm. I was there for about 6 years and I had great camaraderie. And then when I went into business for myself, it was more of kind of an isolated thing. So for the last 10 years, I've had my own studio gallery here in Auburn. And these are some of my paintings. Let's see them. I'm represented in Santa Fe and in Carmel, and new gallery up in Reno. We're gonna have a show over at the Car Museum next month. See that? This show, in fact, this painting's going to the car show. You know, so I do a lot. This is one of my best friends. This is the Time Traveler. He and I are co-hosts on a radio show that comes on at K-High, 950 on your dial on Saturdays at 12 noon. So I multitask. And this is a painting I did. It was a plein air painting I did over in Sedona, and a golden eagle flew right in front of me. And I painted the golden eagle afterwards. I'm not that fast, but that was kind of a nice painting. And one of our local spots that's pretty popular is No Hands Bridge, otherwise known as Mountain Quarries Bridge, down by the American River. And so I've painted this a lot under different conditions. So it's one of my favorite destinations to plein air paint. And I also do a lot of online things. And so I've created something called Repurposed Star Wars. Well, I have all these plein air paintings that I've done for years. And some of them just, like this one was done in Bodega Bay over by I think it's one block away from the ocean. It's that close. So it's a famous artist colony. And this dumpy little house is worth several $1 million just because of the address. So I've had a lot of these paintings just kind of sitting around. So what I've been doing now, selling them like hotcakes, I'm kind of embarrassed to say that, is I just add a Star Wars figure and I sell them on the internet. This is a little 4x5, and I have it on auction right now. And the last bid, this is right now, the last bid is $350. And so, and this is a little commission piece that I'm working on for a client over, I don't know where he lives, somewhere in the United States. And here's one of my next repurposed, another Yoda. Can you see that? So I just kind of have fun with things besides some of my more serious stuff. And then I do a lot of portraits. So this is kind of my portrait wall. And I got some of these back from my dad. And my parents are still alive. My dad is 91. My mother is 96. And they're still alive. So he had some of my portraits, and my brother cleaned out the place, and they were just collecting dust. And I said, well, I'll take them. And my mom has some serious dementia. So I kind of caught her at a moment when she was not quite sure who she was talking to. And I kept reminding her it was me. And she kept going, what? Who are you? So I kind of painted it in that kind of feeling of the edges are not quite so sure. And so the edges kind of represented, in my mind, the loss of certainty, the loss of a hard edge. This is my beautiful wife, Jana. I have to have her here because, you know, she does all my bookkeeping. And this is a portrait. Yeah, looking for a bookkeeper. There she is. This is from Nambe, Santa Fe. I go to Santa Fe, New Mexico every year. And I have a bunch of buddies, and they're selling Indian artifacts. And I'm painting. This is actually it's really thick paint. Landscape of my dad. Actually, landscape. Figurative painting of my dad. You can just, I wanted just to use as much paint as possible. So this is more kind of a display of how much paint I can use. And this is my son, David. I have 2 sons. And I'm now a proud grandfather. So, but they live over in Kona, Hawaii. So it's a little bit of a distance. And this is, again, my buddy, the time traveler. So I do a lot of portraits. And this was done for Color in Your Life. They're a group that promotes artists, so I'm on their website. And let me just show you a piece I just finished. This is a commission piece I just finished for a client. There we go. See? Okay. Is everything okay? I hear crickets.
We're absorbing. We're absorbing.
And so I'm going to start a little portrait for you, kind of show you my technique. I use a chromatic palette. So I kind of go in and out. And like a lot of you, I'm always experimenting. So I kind of go in and out of different palettes. So I'm using yellow ochre, cad orange, cad red light, cad red medium, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, but I'm real sparing with that because that's a dye, and then viridian. And I like viridian because it's a very weak green. And then these colors, these browns are made by mixing the cad red light with the blue, and you get these browns. So that's a little bit of the color theory when you explore like a Zorn palette. So but I'm not using that palette today, although I've used that before. And so I'll just kind of show you how I started painting. And I know it's just kind of like watching paint dry. And I have a hard time, you know how everybody's selling their videos. I have, let's even turn this around. Yeah, on my website, if you're interested, I have something called the 1 hour lay-in, and I show you how I lay something in 1 hour. And I try to spend as much time telling you how to think properly more than how to paint properly, and how to see the division between the lights and the darks. I've taught a lot of students, and the hardest thing for them to see is separating the darks from the lights. And they're always asking me, how can I keep from getting muddy color? Well, what happens is you start sliding your darks into your lights and your lights into your darks, and I see it all the time. And so it just takes a lot of practice to separate those two things. And once you can, then you can start getting more vibrant color, and things are less muddy. So that's a little something I'll talk about here, but not as much. I'll just show you kind of how I mix my colors. Is there any questions, anything they want me to, since you're an art group, you all know a lot about art.
I do.
I can make this go any which way, which you want me to focus on.
Okay. I'd like to know your canvas of choice.
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, more and more now I work on MDF, which is essentially cabinet masonite.
So then what gesso are you using? Whose do you find the best for putting on the masonite?
Okay, well, it's not Masonite, it's MDF.
Same thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm a national ambassador for Blick, okay. So I've done a lot of promotionals for Blick, and it's a paid position. So I've got more art materials than I need now because they pay me through, giving me because it's an exchange a lot of oil. So what I've been using Utrecht paint for years. So Utrecht paint's my finest, and I really like their professional gesso. And it's a lot better than the Liquitex gesso. It's a lot thicker. It just has a little bit more body. And when I prepare, I'll take you into the dungeon right now. I don't take too many people here, but we're all artists, so you kind of know how messy things can get.
Well, we all know. We all know that how messy things can get.
So, right now I'm preparing some panels for a studio tour. And so I'll usually do about 5 layers, 5 coats on these. You can buy these unprimed panels over at Blick. And then I use, there it is right there. That's what I use.
And you sand in between each layer then?
Yeah, just a slight sanding because there's always some little grains and bumps. And then of course I do a lot of shipping because I ship to New Mexico and Carmel. So I always keep an array of boxes here and that sort of stuff. So it's right now look at this. It's a disaster area because I just came back from New Mexico, and because the gallery that represented me there got sold. So I wanted to meet the new owner and firm things up. So that was really important. So I kind of left in a rush. So I really haven't addressed a lot of the mess back here, but only because I like you guys, I'm bringing you back here. I normally don't bring people back here. And
thank you so much.
This is my mentor. I turned it on, but the light bulb just went off. This is my mentor, Sam Hyde Harris. And he was best friends with Norman Rockwell. So when I was like 13 years old, I used to take care of his studio, and he used to just fill my ears with all these amazing stories and parties they had. He was also a neighbor of Frank Tenney Johnson, who's now just a highly collected Western painter. And he had an original Norman Rockwell that Norman signed over to him. So I was all in to be a painter when I was about 13. It's painting my mother. That's my son there. So I have a lot of stuff here. And just because you guys are all artists, I used to be an illustrator, and I brought these out because I was telling people at one time that I worked in gouache, and they go, "What's that?" Well, it's opaque watercolor. Anybody here work in gouache?
All the time.
Okay.
Yes, we have several members.
So you'll appreciate. I haven't worked in gouache in years.
I went to Art Center and studied illustration like he did, and they taught us.
What year? What year?
Oh God, 79, I think, something like that.
Oh, then I might know you because I graduated in 80.
My name's Christy Warren. If you can remember that, you've got a better memory than I do.
Do you remember like Chris Hopkins, Mick McGinty, David Darrow? Any of those names sound familiar?
No, sorry.
Okay. Well, this is. I used to do a lot of book covers in gouache. This is gouache.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's one more.
Wow. Oh, fun. Right. Oh, wow. Wow.
And I was really getting into it, and then the publisher says, "Well, we'd like you to do things in oils now. We want the oil look." And that was kind of a drag, but you give the person who pays your bill, who pays you, give them what they want. So that's actually one reason why I started getting into oils, is because the publisher demanded I work in oils. And that was back in, 1992, 93, something like that. Do you remember Phil Hayes? Who's the art center person? Do you remember Phil Hayes?
That name sounds familiar, actually, yes.
He was the head of the illustration department. So
Yeah.
you had to have known. And then, of course,
Yeah.
you had to have known who he was because he was the one who was always calling shots. Okay. Okay. So, and if there's no more questions, I'm gonna start laying this in. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Go.
Okay. So I'm gonna set this up over here by the camera. That way I don't have to hold it.
What's the light?
Is that okay?
Bad light.
Sorry?
The light's too bright, reflective.
Okay.
Kind of washing it out. Put some more paint on it.
Well, it is white in the middle of that. It's actually pretty accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's better.
Fine.
That better?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna, why is that not moving? There we go. And I got some Bill Evans music in the background, so hopefully you don't mind that. And I bet you this is the first. I have a whole array of odorless terpenoid, from real clean to really dirty, because I'm just a stickler of just keeping my brushes clean. Okay. Okay. And I guess you could see the subject I'm working on there. I've already kind of pre-mixed up some of the background colors. I always like painting a little bit of the background first. And so actually I'm working on, I never finished that question. I'm working on linen right now.
Thank you.
I prefer linen over cotton duck. I really do not like cotton duck at all. And I usually will add one thin layer first. That's why it's slightly gray, only because I want the canvas to absorb as much of the paint as possible. So I don't want to be fighting that canvas. And that's the only reason why. I will lay in film of paint at the very beginning. And just for speed, I projected the photograph onto the camera. So people always ask me, what's your method? Well, I've painted from life, I've painted from photographs, you know. These are rosemary brushes, by the way, which are really cool. You know, I've kind of done it all, and I'm at a point now. It's like I just do what works, and also I'm looking for speed, and I get speed by just being very efficient. Okay. And so the next thing I usually do, this is my technique, is I try to hit I hit the darks first. And that's really important for me. And then this is also my secret weapon. I really love color, so I get fooled by the color all the time, even after I've done this stuff for years and years. So I always, tell me if you can see this. Can you see the black and white?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I always use a black and white. I always go back and forth with using the original And then after I've used the original color, then look at the same image in black and white. So I'm always testing my colors with the black and white.
What is that? Is that a
so
it's an iron.
I don't know if this method looks unusual to you guys, but this is kind of how I do it. And I'm actually kind of very loose. I don't know if you notice here, but I'm very loose with the edges. So, and that same dark that I saw up there, I'm now going to use down over in here. And again, I'm very, very loose with my edges. And the only medium I'm using is linseed oil, okay? And I've taught a lot of watercolor artists. William, are you there? Great artist you have there, William.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, he's here.
Yeah. The watercolor artists have the hardest time making the transition to oils. And the reason is because I've taught a lot of them, they keep dipping into the terpenoid as if it's water. And the terpenoid is a solvent, so it'll have the opposite effect of water. It's breaking down the integrity of the paint. So once they figure out in their mind that the terpenoid is just to clean your brushes and just thin out the paint slightly, I tend not to use it hardly at all. I tend to use a medium such as liquid, or in this case now, just linseed oil. And I use a technique called push-pull. And what that means is I'll paint a little bit into the background. Like here, I'll lose that edge, and I'll lose the edge here. And then when I'll do this for you guys, because you guys are you're all on top of things. Like I'll go right over into the background. And then I will bring my color and bring my background color towards the edge of the hair. You see what I did there? As opposed to just kind of not wanting to go over the outline, I will now come back into the form with the background. And that way I get a nice soft edge, and it creates that effect like on your iPhone, you can set the F stop and you can blur out the background. But it has that kind of effect. It's a very effective effect for portraits, because that way the hair doesn't look like it's cut out. And I see a lot of students do that all the time, where the hair just looks like it's cut out. Now, this might not just be the final color, but it will help me. Okay. And right now I'm using kind of a synthetic mongoose. Can you see that? Okay. And now, next thing I will do, I'm going to bring down this form. And I know eventually it'll get a little bit grayer, but for right now, I'm just looking to get some paint on there. I'll bring it all the way down. And again, I'm just going to lose that edge. Even though I've projected this thing, I still lose the edges. What I really care about when I project is to get the corner of the mouth, distance of the nostrils, kind of where the eyes are. Those are really the only dimensions that are important to me. Otherwise, if everything is traced and it looks too mechanical. At least to my eye. Okay. Okay. Right now, I care more about the values than I care about the actual accurate color. And as you can see, I'm not overly blending. I mean, I'm blending, but I'm not overly blending. Again, I'm gonna lose some of these edges down here. Same thing here, I'm gonna lose some of that. Am I boring you guys yet?
No.
Sure?
No.
Okay, just let me know.
Frank, will you tell us about your books?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Tell us about your books.
Oh, yes, you could order my book, The Life Iconic, on my website. Here, let me grab that. What time is it? Because I know I only have about an hour.
Don't know.
11:32.
11:32. 11:32.
You can find this book. It's on my website. And I talk about my plein air process. It's mostly about my outdoor painting. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I kind of feel like Bob Ross right now. But here's the part that's really important is to, I don't know if you guys work in this method, but I do. I want it to feel like a ball. So I want you to feel how this is kind of going around. Going around the form. Again, and I really don't care, even though I project it, I really don't care if I go over the line. In fact, I want to go over the line. Because again, what's important to me are the corners of the mouth, the location of the nostrils, and the centers of the eye. That's the most important. Otherwise, things are just they just won't look right. But if you get those corners of the mouths, the nostrils, kind of the centers of the eyes, if you can get that dimension, everything else works, because we all look at the eyes. You know, we could tell if the person's sad, hurt, angry, confused. Eyes, windows to the soul. So I really focus on that. Okay. And actually, this was a perfect excuse for me to paint this. I donated for a fundraiser a portrait, and so this nice couple won the portrait. They donated to a good cause. So I went, well, this is great. I can kind of start this the same and show you how I start a painting. And even for the ear is going to have some modulations, but right now I'm just going to paint it as just a tone. I'll go back in and define the shape. I mean, all those peculiarities of the ear, but I'm not going to worry about that now. Okay. And I like the idea, you know, the concept of the penumbra. you know, where you get kind of get a glow off of an area that's light. You'll see some of that color go into the darkness. So I'm kind of establishing that right now so that I'll remember that. So I'm going across the plane. Here's something else to remember is when we get too dark, move all the way across here. To the across the cheeks. This is going to be laid in pretty quickly. And I like working wet into wet. All those with portraits, and I'm usually working 3 paintings at a time. And so while one is drying, another is being worked on. Okay. And I'll worry about the teeth later. So I'll just kind of blend all that in. And of course, what's important to me is getting the corners, just identifying where the corners are. Okay. Any questions? Okay. I must be doing a bad job. But I've done these before where people go, so when are you gonna paint the eyes? When are you gonna paint the eyes? Well, I'll get to that in short order. You know, there's a lot of blues and lavenders around the eyes. And that took a while for me to figure out, just all these nuanced colors. So I'm really pushing some of these pinks. I'd rather go a little bright at the beginning and then dull it than be too dull at the very beginning. Although I'm kind of being dull right now. And again, I'm using my chromatic palette. And I'm very much interested in the planes. I'm always thinking of it as a ball, always as a ball. And whatever is in the background, some of that is going to be influenced on the side of the face. So I'm using some of the color of the background. This is a key takeaway. If you want to have some unity in your painting, is some of this background, I'm going to use it for the side of the face. Now, obviously, the painting is 2-dimensional, but I'm kind of thinking three-dimensionally in terms of how that surface is going to turn. So I've got some of that background already there. Now, I'll use some of that. And now I'm going to go to my black and white. I'm actually going to be painting from black and white now. And I paint from a black and white at this point just for so I can get my values and not get fooled by the colors, because I easily get fooled. And I think you make the most progress when you're really honest with yourself and just go, it's just like golfers, you know, I don't care who you are. Golfers know where they have a hole in their game, whether it's the long game, the short game, putting, that sort of thing. And they'll work with people
who will help them. And I think with artists, you know, we all have holes in our game. And for me, it's like, I really love color. And so I have to really be careful with my values because I'll sometimes make some of my colors way too light. And when I see them in black and white, it helps me, it really helps me with the values. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing now. And again, some of that color from the back is going to be in the hair background. And I know I have, and I'm just going to keep it kind of loose up here. Okay, kind of loose. And now also in that black and white, you know, I can see where I got to, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see where I got a little bit too light in my values. Yeah, I more and more now, I paint with the black and white initially, and then I will move over to my color. I know it's a weird way of working, but it seems to work for me. Okay. And I do like having models pose for me too. And so I had a hard time getting this young man to come to the gallery to pose. So we all just agreed that he'd sit for a photograph. So that's what kind of worked here. Okay. Let's get up there with the eyes. Yeah, I think we're doing okay. Yeah. Is there a question?
No, not
Keep
yet.
going.
Okay. You sure I'm not boring you guys?
No.
We are mesmerized.
Yes. When are you going to do the eyes?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the. What time is it? I'm gonna do the eyes in short order here.
Kidding.
Okay. And you know what? I'm gonna do a little. I want to make this a warm. And why am I making this kind of a warm yellow? Because I have like a violet in the background, and the yellow is, well, actually it's yellow ochre, is the complement. So I'll get a really nice dynamic feel with that yellow ochre. Again, I'm just painting right now with a black and white because I don't want to get tricked by the colors. Okay. And now my other secret weapon is I use the stretcher bar to rest my hand. How much time do I have? What time is it?
15 minutes.
Okay. Oh, 15 minutes. Oh yeah, I can finish this. Yeah, right. Yep. I'm just going to kind of lean in here, and I let's see what kind of color eyes he has. They're brown. Okay. Just for you guys, because normally I don't paint the eyes right away. Just for you guys. And the idea here, if I look at the values, it's really dark. Okay. I'm just looking at values. Just looking at values.
What color is on your brush?
Sorry?
What color on your brush right now?
It's kind of like I mixed the CAD red medium with an ultramarine blue to create a brown, a dark brown.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So, yep. So I'm avoiding using any of the what do they call that? Tobacco juice school colors. You know, the raw sienna, burnt umber, raw umber, Indian red. You know, those colors. I'm avoiding those colors.
Why?
So, sorry?
Why?
What's the rationale?
What's the rationale? Just because I feel like it. It's a subjective thing, you know. Nothing. No, I'm serious. It's a subjective thing. At one time, I used to hear a lot of artists brag about, I don't use black. I don't, you know, I can't. I like to mix my own black. And then this was years ago. And then I realized the artists that most people that like traditional art, when I found out that John Singer Sargent and Sorolla and Andrew Zorn, they all used black, then I go, God, it's foolhardy not to use black if the people that you most aspire to be like, they're using black. So I use black too. And right now, in this case, I'm not using that. I think, if they had black hair, because I could just get there faster, and I would mix some of these other colors in there with the black. Now, you guys should all know it's not that easy to paint and talk at the same time. Am I right or am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, but I had a friend of mine who's a quite successful artist. He used to tell me, Frank, you know, if you're going to be doing this, you know, so much of, it was some of the best advice I ever got. He goes, so much of the whole fine art field is very social. It's very different than when you were an illustrator. Because when you're an illustrator, you're inside your room and you're painting for a client, and you know, you finish the job and then you're onto the next job, and you know, that's kind of how it works. But he goes, the fine art business, he says, if you really want to be successful at it, you're going to have to learn to be sociable, because you have all these openings and people want to talk to you, and they want to know what was your inspiration, or what were you thinking. And he goes, that's just part of the whole shtick. And you know, guys, that was like some of the best advice I ever got. What do you think?
Yeah. So did you start practicing?
Yeah, I started practicing when people talk to me. You know, not to be upset when I'm working and they're talking to me, and I just learn how to talk while I'm painting. You know, so as you can see, I haven't gone to my color reference. I'm just doing all this with my black and white. Why? Because the values are the most important thing. It's not the color. Have you guys ever heard that dictum? You know, what is it? Color gets the glory, but the values essentially do all the hard work. You guys heard that one?
They do the heavy lifting.
That's it. It's one of those two.
It's a person.
Yeah, look, it's got the eyes. Yeah, and of course, is all of painting. I mean, when I teach, I have a very simple kind of mantra, and you guys probably know that mantra. It's compare and contrast. Compare and contrast. A lot of painting is just compare and contrast. Is this bluer? Is this redder? Is it greener? Is it yellower? Is it darker? Is it lighter? Is it bigger? Is it smaller? Is it more round? Is it more square? And that's essentially what I do when I paint. It's always compare and contrast. And to me, it's really nothing more difficult than that. And of course, the other quality that that you need is just a little bit of, especially for this, is just a little bit of patience. Now, usually the big shock is when I go back into the color to see what it looks like, But that's okay, because all I care about is right now is the values. And I'd rather not look at this point, overly look at the color photograph, because I don't want, this thing has to work as a painting. What does that mean? It means all the colors have to work together. So this kind of forces me to look at all the colors that are on there and have them work together, as opposed to me just copying the photograph. So that's why if you ever look at, at some of my paintings up close, and from a distance, they can look very photographic, but they're just dabs of color. Dabs of color. And eventually, for it to look more, finished, it's just a closer attention to those dabs of color. Yeah. Yep. Get some of those cheeks, gonna be some of those pinks in there. I'm already kind of anticipating what those pinks are going to be like. And I also adhere to that dictum of thin over thick. So when I first start, things are fairly thin, and as I move along, it just gets kind of I think it's thicker and thicker. Okay. Again, I'm just working right now with a synthetic brush. Just trying to get some values in there. And I'm also working a little faster than normal, just because I kind of want you guys to see what this looks like. And especially when you start getting some of those reds in here on the cheeks, that's when it really starts coming together. And especially like the highlights in the eyes. And I've learned, I'm definitely naturally ADD. So when at first when people ask you, why do you bounce around? It's because I get distracted. So more when I try to finish something that I started. And how many of you have that same problem?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. If you didn't bounce around, you cannot attend to an area that long in oil and not ruin what you just did. You have to give it time.
Yep. Well, it's all, just like I said earlier, it's all compare and contrast. And there's no big secret about that. Again, I haven't done the, I haven't looked at the colors yet. And I love working, with a lot of compliments. And of course, I took a course in anatomy years ago, and that really helps with your portrait painting, where you know how the form works around with the planes. And this is the part that I really enjoy now, as you get closer and closer, just really establishing this gray color. Yep. And I still, probably like you, like many of you, I still have not lost my love and passion for painting. I mean, I still enjoy it. And like many of you, at the end of the day, it's like, God, where did the time go? You just kind of get lost in the painting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's you know, for those of us who do this, it's a wonderful lifestyle. I mean, I've raised my family, you know, just with my art, just being an artist. And like I've been here for 10 years, but the more I think about it, it's like, that's an amazing thing. Can you see how that's coming together now? You know, as we get close to the time, I'll take the iPhone off of the tripod so you can kind of see where I'm at. But you can now say you saw, you know, an artist paint a colored portrait just with the black and white. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, why is that important? Because it's the values. If there's anything, you know, you could take away from today, it's always the values. If there's something wrong with your painting, I mean, yes, there's always the drawing. Okay, I'll go with that. But oftentimes, you know, if your painting is not working, it's the values. You know, and I like Williams' work a lot, and I go, man, that guy hits the values spot on. You know. And he does it with watercolor, but the values are spot on. And so, and that really takes training to really understand the values. Like here, the value here of the light is a little bit darker as it moves across here. And so I'm going to get that nice little glow in here. Nice little, and that's one thing that makes these portraits comes alive, is just capturing some of that glow. And let me see here if I can get some of this. Values, values, values. And I'm going now painting across the form. You paint with the form, you know, you go this way, across the form, that way. And it creates a really nice variety. Can you see that? Okay. And I might bring out some yellow here. Can you see? So right now I'm just getting that light glow. Working across the form. I know it gets a little bit darker as it moves across the hair. And now I'm going to create that penumbra, which is, again, the light being cast off. And the best way to do that is wet in the wet. And again, I'm doing this a little quickly, but I want you guys to see that because it creates a really nice effect. Okay, and so my lightest light probably going to be right in here. Okay. So now I'm going to check some of my values again. Do you guys see how quickly this thing has been laid in?
Yeah.
And not even a full. I'm not bragging here. I'm just saying it's not been a full hour, but it just shows you if you understand planes, you could really you can really hit getting something to look very real and lifelike quite quickly. And of course, you know, with the cheeks, getting that to feel just right is important. Compare, contrast. That's the big deal here. Okay. I'll switch over to color. Okay, there we go. And there's always a top shelf of the cheek. And now I'm seeing some of those blues that are right underneath his eyes. And of course, this blue right by the eyes, that's really important. Why is it important? Because it sets the eyes back. That's a little trick that you learn after you've done a lot of portraits of the cools right by the edge of the eyes. You get a lot of cools and greens there, and that's what sets the eye back. Otherwise, it comes forward and it just starts looking really odd. Okay, and of course, you always avoid just painting the whites of the eyeball white. It just looks really weird. But that's one of the first things you, as a painter of portraits, have to be very sensitive to not overly painting the whites of the eyeball so white. And of course, there's that, we have the highlight. So I have to be getting close to the time limit here, right?
Unfortunately, yes, we were being real quiet about it.
Well, I'm not going anywhere, so I'll just do a couple. I just want you to see a little bit. Now, there's a cool light. I had a cool light on him. So here's the other trick, you know, warm, cool, warm, cool, warm, cool. So if my highlight is going to be cool, then when it turns away from the highlight, it gets warmer. And you could take that technique to the bank. That is one technique. So right now I'm using the cool highlight. And I should be using a bigger brush, but right now, just for speed's sake, I'm using the same brush. And I'm using my Viridian here. That Viridian is a very weak green. The photograph is a little bit too green in there, so I'm not going to worry about that. And for this to set back, there's going to be some of that green here, some of that green there. And just wanted to get this under there. I'm going to go back to my black and white.
What kind of a tablet is that?
I'm sorry?
What kind of a, yeah.
Yeah, I use, that's an iPad Pro.
Okay.
It's awfully big.
I highly recommend it. You know, I also do
Awfully
digital.
big.
Huh?
It's awfully big.
Yeah, well, that's the iPad Pro, you know. Well, can I just give you my word of advice? You know, if you're going to make this, you know, I do this for a living. So I try to use the best paint, the best tablet, the best lighting, the best oils, at least the oils that I like. And so you just, you know, you do what you got to do to be successful, you know. And so I'll spend tons of money on a really nice, you know, Escoda brush, just because it'll give me a quality that I can't find with the cheaper brushes. When I lay in a painting like what I'm doing now, then I'll use, you know, a cheap synthetic. But as soon as I start focusing in on the finish, I'll start going over to my rosemary brushes and some of my more nicer, you know, other brushes. I lost my train of thought, but essentially, yeah, I just try to use the best materials so I could be successful. I never want to, you know, walk away from something saying, you know, I should have used a better canvas, or I should have used, you know, a better reference. And I've seen that with a lot of students. They just, you know, they're working from really crappy reference. And I'm like, why? Get the best reference, you know, blow it. But if you're going to do the eye, see, I could just blow that. I could blow that up and I could see what's happening there. I could see, you know, what's going on there, you know. And some people are working from these small photographs and, you know, I don't get it. So I do everything, you know, that I can. And I also have, you know, the largest iMac there, so I can blow things up and look at it. And I also use a mirror. And so the mirror also helps me. So at this point, I just try to do everything that'll help me be successful. And you should also surround yourself with people who are going to speak truth to you. There's a guy here in town. He worked at Disney. He was a director, and we've become good friends. And so you have to allow these people to speak into your life. And so he'll come in and you know, he'll tear apart my paintings, and you know, and it's cool, you know, because he's not doing it because he hates me. You know, he does it because he loves me. And he's offering us suggestions. Now, some of the suggestions are his taste. And that's the other thing you have to be aware of. But he's given me, half the time, he's given me some really good feedback on my art. So that's the other thing. You can't be afraid of getting, you know, good feedback. Have you ever seen that movie, Florence Foster Jenkins?
No.
Yeah, you should check it out. She was a gal. She surrounded herself with sycophants. She fancied herself. It's a true story. Meryl Streep, you know, played her. She fancied herself an opera singer, and she surrounded herself with people who told her how great she was, and she was horrible. And we know she was horrible because she actually had the audacity to cut an album. So you could go on YouTube and you could type in Florence Foster Jenkins and hear her sing these arias, and they're horrible. But what makes her a tragic figure is that nobody would tell her how truly horrible she was. So this is really the fact. She booked the Carnegie Hall, and she did a whole performance at the Carnegie Hall, and the critics just panned it. And she was devastated, and she died 2 weeks later, literally.
Oh.
Yes, it's very tragic. And so you want to surround yourself with people who are going to tell you the truth. You know, I don't know if that eye looks quite right. There's a problem there with you know, the corner of the mouth. You just need those type of people in your life who tell you that. And when I was at Lucasfilm, you know, when we worked on a paintings or any of our work, we all would sit down and literally for an hour, we would pick apart our paintings. And it was very hard at first, although we had that at Art Center, but not to the devastating degree that we had that over at Lucasfilm. And so at the end, nobody was tearing down a painting because they were jealous. The idea was, how can we make all this, how can we make our paintings even better? So, you know, what if you did, you know, added this tree, or what if you know, made that cloud bigger? What if that shape was more warmer, you know? And so these are things that you just have to let go of your ego. And if you respect somebody, you even pay them to go, okay, what do you think of my work, you know? And, you know, have the courage to just listen to somebody, have input, you know? And we do that, you know, if you're having problems in your marriage, you go to a therapist and they go, well, maybe you shouldn't be so angry after coming home from work. Maybe you should, you know, mellow out before you kick the dog, yell at the wife. That's, you know what I'm saying? We do that. And so art therapy is also kind of a good thing to have too. So as you can see, more and more, this is now, just, at least to me, it's starting to come together. You know? And even if the colors aren't quite right, the values are everything. You guys are tricking me. It's got to be past 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
Past noon.
it's about 12 after 12.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Do you have any last words for us?
Well, okay, hold on. Now I'm really into it. Hold on. I'll take this off. Okay. So you can kind of see, you know, it's starting to get there.
Yeah.
Okay. So and as you can see, that's just less than an hour. So within another hour, it's going to be, you know, it's just more and more start looking like him. And, but, you know, so you know, once you start getting in the eyebrows and all and everything else, then it just starts feeling right. So my word of advice, you know, surround yourself with artists that are better than yourselves. You know, you can't go by Facebook with all the likes. You need to be surrounded by people who are really going to speak truth to you. I work all the time, and so I'm always doing something. And like, here, let me see. I'll show you some of my digital work. I also work digitally.
What program do you use for your digital?
I use Procreate.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, so I'll do, oh, wait. I'll just show you something really quick because then I got to run. Yeah. So I'll do like, there's one of FDR. And that's just all done on Procreate.